Hello and welcome to another episode of The Zoo. Today we're going to talk about wearable technology. But it's not only the technology that interests me, it's some of the people behind it who's keeping it alive, who's driving it forward, and is spreading it around the world. So with me in The Zoo today is Dancy, someone some of the larger magazines call the world's most quantified human being. Welcome to The Zoo, Chris.
Hello. I feel like I'm in a time machine.
We're always traveling back and forth in time when I'm with you. You moved to Nashville recently. What's that like?
It's got a great music scene. I mean, the food's really good. You need to get like a prescription for Lipitor just to like have dinner. I like the woods. I mean, Denver wasn't very green and lush. Nashville's very lush. I don't know. Denver was home for 20 years. I mean, while I worked at BMC years ago, and when I worked at ServiceNow years before that, Pink Elephant years before that. So it's kind of nice. It's a new start.
I was very surprised when I was there. I think it's an underrated city, so I'm very glad to see you there. You've been involved in wearables for quite a while, long before it was cool, and you actually bought yourself it. What's the most fantastic thing you've seen wearable technology do?
Well, there's so many things you can see on the internet that are inspiring. I think one of the most inspiring things I ever saw was a young lady who was deaf and then got a cochlear implant, and that's technically a wearable. And she could hear again. You could see her start crying. Lately, there's a bunch of videos online about these new glasses that came out that make colorblind people see color, and they're fairly expensive. They're about $500, and they take people to the forest or the ocean, and they put them on people, and they start to see things. I think it's really interesting that all the amazing wearable videos that you see online, or videos about enhancing biological features of humans, involve the senses. Sight, sound. It's really interesting how that's kind of a meme. If you go kind of deeper from that kind of high-end medical over to the body modification groups, they're called grinders. They're people who cut themselves open and put things in their fingers, or sensors in their bodies, or swallow sensors. And those people also develop extra senses. And I think from a day-to-day kind of just generic, what can like the average person see that's revolutionary? We've had non-connected pedometers for a long time, and we never really made a big deal about those.
What's a non-connected pedometer?
Oh, just a pedometer you'd wear in your pocket. I mean, these have been around for a couple decades. You could just to see how far you walked. Those are really useful. You can get into some of the whizzy bang stuff that's out now. I saw a video recently of somebody who put their Apple Watch on their baby when it was first born, so they could send the heartbeat to the grandparents. Lots of touchy-feely stuff, but at the end of the day, if it's, I don't like viral moments when it comes to something as sensitive and intimate as biological information.
Well, but it's what it is, right? It's what we as people try to do with it. This is no longer technology next to us. This is technology in us. I mean, my teenage daughters, they saw this thing about the MIT Media Lab, and I'm the oldest one want to go to MIT because they.
I actually spoke there last October.
Did you? So you know what they're up to. And one of the things she found interesting was they connected their brains to social media platforms. These people don't use Facebook and stuff like that. They use things we never heard of. And to them, to my daughters, that's what technology is. Not what you're doing, Daddy, selling IT service management. So connecting your brain to social media platform, that's what we're standing. You've done that to a degree. Maybe not your brain, but your body. How many sensors are in you? How many things, gauges are tracking you right now as I'm talking to you?
5.
You used to have more.
Oh yeah, I used to have a lot more, but the phones have gotten really good. So I've written software to help actually compress a lot of things I used to have to wear into an application that just runs in the background all the time, like an antivirus agent. It just monitoring all the time. I've gotten really good at efficiently extracting information from the smallest amounts of life. I tell people it's like data fracking your phone. Like if you could, get all the renewable energy out of here, you'd be amazed. Because this has my location obviously, but my location is made up of geo coordinates and altitude. It also has, the date and time. Well, Now you've got two pieces of information that create a third piece of information, the seasons. It also has a microphone, so it's also picking up ambient noise levels. It's also got a light sensor because it knows how to brighten up the screen. So it's also measuring light and tracking light. Because of the accelerometer and the GPS, it's also got velocity, so it knows how fast I'm going or not going. How I use it and how often I turn it on says a lot about how bored I am or what type of day I'm having. So it's just a big, satellite surveilling me, but it's in my pocket.
So there's way more than 5 things that tracking you and your environment.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you go to all of the things I'm tracking, there's thousands of things I track now. I used to track, oh gosh, between 500 and 1,500 things on a daily basis. That was about 3 years ago when the first Wired article came out. But, I'm upwards between 10 and 20 and maybe 25,000 some days, depending on it. Because now everything I have has a sensor in it. So I have this digital proprioception where, like, I have this sense of self outside of myself because of the things that I track now.
Is that helping you?
It doesn't. I mean, I've, the thing people talk about is how much weight I lost, and obviously
You look fantastic, by the way. Since I met you, you look amazing. So that works.
But I also quit smoking. When I, if I go back 3 years ago, when I started this journey in the public eye, I was a smoker. I don't drink. I meditate on a pretty regular basis. And they help you do a lot, but you have to like really think about them for what they are. And so many people confuse wearable technology and the quantified self with counting things. And at the end of the day, you don't get better by counting steps. You get better by taking steps. And I think unless we look at...
Why is that? Why do we do... Is it because we are reminded of it? Or is it because we guilted into it? How's that connection?
Well, I think it's guilt completely. I mean, most organizations today who have wearable policies, be through their HR departments or organizations that just have policies around how you use applications, there's this whole concept of gamification. And gamification, to me, has turned out to be a really evil seed. It started early in the reputation economy when companies like Clout were doing scores and things like that. But what it ended up doing was creating a bunch of people battling each other for attention. And that's not a really efficient way to help people get better or think about their lives or to be more productive. So I think we've gone from gamification to shamification. And shamification routines are like leaderboards and you comparing yourself to a bunch of other people. Jawbone's a company that, I've got their sensor. They'll have entire teams of people on one board and you can see how all your coworkers are sleeping or how all productive your coworkers are. And I just think if you can associate a name and a score to someone, you always judge them. So I'm just not a big fan.
That's interesting. Yeah, it scares the bejesus saying it. So it's helping us in the first world.
Well, I mean, we use, what did we use at BMC? We used Yammer or Chatter.
Yeah, and I know. And apparently I'm a super user, so I don't know.
Well, no, but on Chatter, there's it's monitoring you, and there's a Chatter score behind the scenes. So, the people who run Chatter can say that Alf is a good Chatter user and someone else isn't. So the stuff is pervasive. To say that it's, sorry.
No, you're right. You're right.
It makes me angry that a lot of enterprise companies talk about how, they don't spy on their employees, but that's exactly what they do. Yes, if you ever get pulled into ER or HR, which could turn into ER if it's a good enough argument, the first thing they're going to do is look at your emails and look at all sorts of behavior statistics on you. So
yeah. Well, it does make me a better social media user because I do want to be in the top rank. That's my problem. But I don't like how I am sharing myself in an involuntary way. Live in the mountains, trying to stay private. So I do see the value of wearables and quantification and the Internet of Things and all this connected together here, living in California. But what about the less fortunate one? What about the disenfranchised children, poor people both in America and outside? Will modern technology like this help the world, or is this just another toy for rich kids?
Right now, it's a toy for rich kids. I mean, everything we do out there is about, creating stuff that people can access right away, and it's super expensive. Interestingly enough, if you look at what Apple's done in the past couple of months, is they've introduced a plan so that you can have a perpetual iPhone, right? They call it the iPhone upgrade plan. So now users can pay $20 to $30 a month and always have the latest iPhone without having to pay for it. So they get a new one every year. And that's great. And I think it's a step on what we'll see by the end of the decade, which is they're just going to give out iPhones. Because at the end of the day, there isn't a company on earth that isn't living on data. and how they use data and what they do with it. We're not programming solutions anymore as much as we're mining for problems so we can create something that might help somebody if all the stars are aligned. So it's a really ugly situation, but because it's heading that way, people will have these things. If we go out to 2020, there will only be about a projected 150 million wearables on Earth, and that's a very small fraction of the population, right? When I was born in 1968, there were about 3.5 billion people on the Earth, and there's double that now. So 5 years from now, only 150 million wearables is not enough to even penetrate, the poorest of poor. But what will be in existence 5 years from now are about 7 billion smartphones. So there will be about a smartphone for every single person there is on the planet. And what you're going to see at that point is a majority of third world people will have smartphones, but they won't have health care. And what we don't see right now are people talking about how we're going to serve the economic engine that becomes those people, and then serve the health needs that will and are those people today. And I think if you're a savvy business user today in 2015, and you're going to be working in 2020 and you don't have enough to retire, you'd say, hey, is my career aligned with services and or offerings that support the billions of people who don't have any access to anything but can deliver products and services via the device, but more importantly, create them. And you'll see Apple's doing that with how they open sourced Xcode. There's a lot of movement toward what's going to happen, but most of the planet will never know a help desk. So we really need to focus on maybe longer term thinking.
That makes me wonder what wearables can do to the enterprise. Is it beyond shifting our business model? We'll come to that in a second. Will they measure my heart rate as I walk in the office? Will I become a better productive worker because of wearables? Human productivity seems to be the new competitive advantage. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's terrible. It's happening. If you think about, everything goes in cycles, right? It's just we're really good at looking at life through cycles. So if we go back to 2007, 2006, 2007, we really kind of started this age in the enterprise of where you found this first epoch of on-demand services. So you could arguably say that, companies like Amazon from the consumer side, ServiceNow from the enterprise side, were probably early on. I mean, when Fred Luddy and I chatted in 2008 about what he was doing with ServiceNow, the value proposition was someone could sign up and start using it right now. And, that was a really big deal. About 2009, 2010, when I was with Pink Elephant, I really tried to focus and have them look at how you could integrate, social and connected communities into service management. So you really went from the on-demand to social. And these are all kind of very early generations. 2011, you'll see the first rumblings of BYOD. Right, and BYOD is just a nice way of saying wearables, because smartphones are just wearables, right? Just because they're not physically tied to you doesn't mean they're not wearables. They are wearables. They have sensors. They are showing you information. They're collecting information. They're helping you get through your day. And by 2012, you'll really see the rise of consumerism. So some of the earliest work we did around My IT was one of the first kind of stake in the hearts into we can do consumerism better than anyone else. Mm-hmm. You'll notice that he followed that cadence, on-demand, social, BYOD, consumerism, that, all of the companies and all the enterprise companies kind of cycle through these. If you go to really on-demand version 2, you really get kind of the newer things that you're doing with My IT, right? So where's ServiceNow in that picture? Well, so they're announcing a watch app and a bunch of other stuff. You can't take, as I've said for years, you can't take a system built on web forms and force it into an on-demand model, right? Hell, even Amazon doesn't do that. If you look at kind of social version 2, it's really wearables, right? So wearables really allow me more time now to interact, through tapping or through touching or swiping. So my body is the social network, right? So I can say, hey, Alf, I'm going to draw you a picture, and then it shows up on you. And the BYOD really, the new BYOD really isn't wearables as much as it's the medical and the kind of cutting edge stuff that you'd wear that your coworkers might not have access to. So some of the higher end sensors, and I wear a neurological sensor called a Think, THYNK. And what that does is it stimulates my brain to relax me or to give me a little bit more focus when I need it. The very high end.
It now?
No, it sticks in your. I wouldn't wear it because it would scare you, but it sticks to your forehead and lights up. It's really cool. Yeah,
That is cool. It's
yeah,
crazy,
cool.
but it's cool.
Yeah, we've moved really into the, to the deeper layers of the biology, into the neurology and stuff. I mean, it's all happening very, very fast. So that's really kind of the newer BYOD, because BYODs will always be about the advantage you have over a coworker. When we did this in 2009, BYOD was, hey, if I brought my own laptop and my own phone and my own applications, I could do things you couldn't. Now it's I'm bringing things that can augment me that you don't. And all this really leads to what is the new consumerism, right? And the new consumerism is really powered by all the data that came out of V1 and V2, and that's really the age of personalization. So, I think if you think about some of the contextual-based systems that we use, they're great, they know location, but they really don't know much else, and they need to know more to be able to do more for us. I think it's something we'll see. I know, I hate to keep going back to this, but when I was at BMC, 2-3 years ago, we were I was herding them toward personalization then. There was John Hall, I think, over in the UK, did some pioneering work on personalization. But, again, you don't want to go into uncanny valley and creep people out, so how does this know this, right? So you have to be careful.
Yes, we fear about the robots taking over the world. Apparently, there's a whole trilogy about it.
The robots have already taken over the world. They're called our coworkers and family. All you have to do is walk out on the street. No one's paying attention to anything. I'm looking forward to a robot takeover. I'm lonely.
So, and talking about robots, and as we transition, there's these devices, these smartphones, going to get smarter. They're going to help us more and more. They're going to be real assistants. Does that then give me, as an individual worker, a competitive advantage? Meaning, the richer will have a better chance of being productive because they have a better phone, better devices, better tools, better systems, and so on.
Right now, yeah, but in the short term, yeah, in 3 to 5 years, that's true. But we're going to get out between 5 and 10 years, and that's not going to be true, because what makes smartphones smarter aren't the number of computing power. I mean, the computing power on Androids and iPhones isn't getting that much better. And the memory just finally doubled after almost 8 years, right? So Moore's law and smartphones aren't. But how are smartphones actually getting smarter? They're putting more sensors in them. Well, that doesn't mean they're smarter. No, your behavior. So let's get one thing straight right now, once and for all. Smartphones aren't smart if they're laying in a shoebox. They're dumb. Smartphones only become smart when you start putting your life into them and taking nothing out in return. And that's an economy you don't want to be a part of, that you're already a member of. So done. Let's just stop talking about that. So the next thing is, this, to your point about the economic engine, it is going to equal out, because the one thing that's going to happen between 2020 and 2025 is, as these things become democratized so much that anyone has access to the highest level of sensors, really the people who have the best relationship with personalization will be the people who know how to combine those systems. So, Al, if you can buy, the best genetic information in the world in 2022 that help you get through your day, but a user who's willing to surrender all of their rights and have every single sensor monitor them will always have a competitive advantage at that point, because the personalization of software, which is all about time, I'm getting more time out of this, will be the key advantage. And, you'll be a better human, but they'll be more productive.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Am I too old of a dog to teach new tricks? With my daughters, again, it's easy for them. This makes sense. They don't even blink. And for their kids, it's going to be even. But am I sort of the oldest of the young generation? And because I'm thinking about many of my contemporaries and people older, they're not even going to grasp some of the things we're talking about here. And we talk about it as a competitive weapon, as an individual person. Is technology beyond wearables becoming the next nuclear bomb?
I think it's easy for me to look at people my age, I'm almost 50 years old, and say, hey, we're these dying dinosaurs that, really don't have any competitive advantage. But I think a 50-year-old in the year 2000 could have said that, or 1990 or 1980. It always has felt that way. That's just natural. So we have to look at what 50-year-olds today do have, and is it a competitive advantage over what a 25-year-old has today? And I would say that it is. I'd say right now that we are at a competitive advantage, but we're not making use of it. So what is that competitive advantage? We do something, or we have the ability to do something that we used to be able to do very easily, and that was just think about a problem without any technology. We could shut down our laptops, put away our devices, sit in a room alone quietly and talk with each other about the way things worked in history. Today, I think many young people are at a disadvantage as we collapse the internet. So browsers really allowed for a free and open internet. But as soon as we started getting to applications and operating systems that basically were the internet, we started compressing the internet into little spaces. After that, what you saw was really we were moving the internet out of applications and into smaller information bytes. So alerts from applications were just the smallest pieces of the internet peeking through this light at the bottom of a door. With Apple Watch, they moved the alerts onto something called complications, which are the smaller parts of the Apple Watch interface. And when you can get an update on a complication, and then they made complications time travel, so you can spin the Apple Watch dial and actually go forward in your data stream and go backward in your data stream. And then obviously with what we're doing now with all the voice commands, Cortana, Alexa, Siri, OK Google, we've eviscerated the internet. The internet doesn't exist because we're trusting whatever the voice tells us is the answer. So that's great for young people. They have a huge advantage. They can get these answers very quickly.
Internet people, and what we're going to now is computers.
Well, yeah, we're going from trusted first to answer, right? Mm-hmm. So whoever gives me the answer first, regardless of whether it's right or wrong, is the best answer. And in an economy where things need to be done fast, that works well. But we're about to head an economy where things need to be done right and not fast. Yeah. And this is where I think if you're between the ages of 40 and 60, you have a competitive advantage because you don't need Siri to actually think, right? Your first instinct, well, probably your first instinct is to go to Google and look something up, but you can unlearn that. Whereas somebody who's, under 30 doesn't know how to unlearn that. That they know the internet's always been in their lives. They only know how to go to that first. And, we have this amazing technology that's been around for centuries that people our age know how to use, and that's called books. We know how they're cataloged. We know how to find them. We know how they're organized inside. We know how to quickly get, by just scanning, a book, we can find something very quickly. We really are faster than the internet. And the internet has only a fraction of the books on the planet inside of it. So, I challenge young people who say that, they're better, smarter, faster because of that. Because just hand me a book and I'll whoop your ass, right? Because that's something I have in spades, is I remember how to think. And I'm not sure a lot of people think that's a competitive advantage anymore.
And that's as a pretend Renaissance man who thought that the greatest job would be to read, write, and think. It sounds like my era is over. It's been wonderful talking to you again, Chris. It's always mind blowing. I always feel that there's something between super happy and oh my God, the world is ending, and that makes me happy. That's why we're doing this here. So thank you, Chris, for showing up again.
Thanks, Alf.
Thank you. For the rest of you out there, take care. Bye bye.